We are thrilled and moved by the response to the podcast. We love reaching actors all over the world, actors like you, who tell us that our podcast inspires them, informs them, and makes them excited and proud to be an actor.
Yeah, but make no mistake, an acting career is won by being in the consistent practice of the work, week after week, month after month, year after year. Success for an actor is in the doing.
So, here at the BGB Studio, we offer the highest quality acting training for passionate, committed, talented, and ambitious actors. We see that kind of work transform talent into successful careers, and that makes us so happy.
There is no substitute for doing the work consistently, and we offer the work of success. We are the home of your 10,000 hours. We offer ongoing and 8-week on-camera auditions, scene study, and workout classes. They're available now.
So sign up now to secure your spot and get to work. Go to BraemanGarciaBraun.com/classes or click the link for classes in the podcast show notes. We'll see you in class. Hey everybody, it's Risa here.
Hello, my name is Stephen
Braun, and welcome to our podcast. We're doing a special bonus episode about pilot season, and we're going to talk a little bit between the two of us, and then we've invited in a wonderful casting director and BGB teacher, Becky Silverman, who's going to join us and talk about her experience about pilot season and casting and so forth. Here's a little bit about Becky. You know, Becky always knew that she wanted to be a casting director, and she has indeed made that her career. She's had the great fortune to learn from some of the best in the business and to work across multiple genres, including casting the television series Criminal Minds and working on Without a Trace, an American Horror Story, to name a few. And she's been nominated for 3 CSA Artios Awards, casting's highest honor. A few years ago, Day One, a short film she cast, was nominated for an Academy Award. And she's a really sensitive, actor-loving, hard-working, deeply spirited, talented casting professional and teacher. And we look forward to continuing our conversation with her. So let's jump in. Pilot season.
What?
2020.
What's pilot season?
What is pilot season?
Is
there
a
a pilot season? Well, it is in people's...
And should we care?
Yeah. We shouldn't care, and it's a thing in people's minds.
Pilot season, a mental construct.
Yeah, I think so. More than anything, and let's talk about what that is. But to honor what comes up for people, for me too, you know, for all of us, something comes up, you know, the beginning of the year happens, and then we move into this idea of award season and Sundance and all these things that we may feel like we're outside of.
Right.
And then there's this notion of pilot season, which almost is like an annual notion, an annual construct, an annual experience that does or doesn't exist for people, but there are big feelings around it.
No doubt, and it offers hope, false though sometimes it might be.
Okay.
It offers the pressure of I should be doing something should be happening, right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you were to say like, I'm not booking anything, but it's pilot season, I'm getting out a lot.
I should be a part of this.
Right. There's some folks who either this pilot season or historically have spent, you know, pilot season, and we'll talk about exactly what that means in a sec, but living out of their cars, you know, like you have food and change of clothes because you're going from one audition to the next, to the next, to the next, and basically you're on the road all the time. You're just showing up to these auditions completely frazzled, and but that may be an antiquated notion, and it feels like every single year it's dissolving into the ether more and more.
Yeah.
Because of technology, because of all sorts of reasons, which we'll get into.
Yeah. And so we just want to acknowledge those feelings that come up for you, and it's important for you to just stop and acknowledge what that is for you. What does pilot season mean to you, and what does it bring up for you? And to take a look at that and to see what's real, what's constructed, you know, and what or manufactured. And we're going to talk a little bit later about what you can do about that,
right,
so that you can have a healthy, successful time of year / pilot season.
Yeah, and so maybe best place to start with what actually is pilot season. And by that I mean not the mental construct, but the industrial construct, the construct of our industry as it has been created over the decades to create and process television, and sometimes not good television, but television nonetheless, as opposed to the pilot season that lives in your head, that is the thing that causes some sort of pressure, makes you feel shame or like you should be further along than you are, or
this is the opportunity of a lifetime.
Sure, pilot seasons past, right? Like, well, last year I went out, or 5 years ago it was different. All of those stuff, all those things in your head that we will separate from the actual thing that is pilot season, the actual industrial construct. Risa, go ahead. You've been through some pilot seasons.
I have been through some pilot seasons. I'm definitely have some war wounds.
How many pilot seasons do you think you've been through?
Good question.
I've been through as
20,
an actor.
I guess.
Yeah. Oh, really? More than that, I think.
No, I didn't even know what it was until I got into television.
Right, because you were busy doing movies.
I was doing movies, and then got into television at a really great time. But when pilots were starting to fall to pieces, the whole notion of what that was. But I've done a bunch of pilots, and it's pretty brutal. And I have a lot of conflicting feelings about it right now myself, as to walking into this time of year and what do I want to do about that, and even to be a part of it or not to be a part of it. Right. So what happens during what now amounts to just 60 days or so?
Yeah. So let's talk about what it actually is.
And it used to be longer. It used to be like mid-January until mid-April.
Yeah. Right.
But now it really starts at the end of January, and then it is pretty much over by the middle of March at the latest, except for some comedies that maybe tape in April. But the truth of it is it's really short, right?
I think so. I mean, and again, it seems to be getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah. And so think about that. So let's just talk about what a pilot is, just as a notion.
What do you mean, what a pilot? I know what a pilot is. It's the first, version of a TV show that you sell to some people, and if they like it, they'll say, yes, let's make more of those. That's what a pilot is, Risa.
Yeah, that is what it is generally.
We can get more specific than that.
But and this leads to all of the pressure. It's one single episode that's made and tested with audiences, and either picked up to series or not. And the number of pilots that are picked up. So if 80 or 90 are made by the major networks, and that's all it is, it's the 4 networks and a couple of others, and if they're 80 or 90 made, maybe 20 are picked up, and maybe of those 25 last through the first season, and maybe 2 through the second season, or 3. I mean, we're talking about like this sort of funnel from big ideas to actually, and you think, 80, 90, that's a lot. That's like 1,300 jobs. But it's really not very much in terms of what the end result is.
And that speaks to some of my trauma around pilot season and doing pilots as an actor and coaching them now too, because that bottleneck creates this frenetic, emotionally violent, oh my God, we have to get this done. We have to get this on the air. There's 130 cooks in the kitchen. They all have different ideas.
Right.
So the script that you, let's say as an actor, when I was doing pilots during an acting career, but also now the scripts that come in when we're coaching audition sides, some of them are completely fucking unintelligible. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. It's just like you see that, wow, everyone is just running around with their hair on fire, trying to figure this out, throwing things at the wall, and no one really knows. And so then an actor enters this situation and tries to elevate this thing to the level of humanity. It's one of the reasons why even in our pilot season workout classes or audition classes, yes, we'll deal with pilot material, but we have to offer the caution that if you as an actor are working on pilot material consistently, you are not getting the full extension of your muscles, because when you actually address this kind of material that comes from this pressure cooker that you're describing, this one singular episode that's supposed to spawn 7 seasons and a franchise or whatever, you really have to show up really muscular so that you have to fix what's there and elevate it to the level of humanity.
Yeah, and to speak to that, so writers write pilots, they try to bring everything they can possibly bring into that one story, into those either 22 minutes for a half hour or 44 minutes for an hour, remembering these are commercials on network television, and they have to introduce all these characters. They've got to identify those characters to the audience and invite them into this world. So they have, and sometimes it's formulaic, but there's quite a lot of pressure to create a first episode that's going to do all of those impossible things in one episode. And so some writer or a couple of writers have put their hearts and souls into this thing for months and months and months and months. And whether or not it's formed or even close to a real story, when it gets picked up, suddenly it's like it's put on this pedestal, like it's at this top of this mountain, and everything has to be amazing in order for this thing to have a life. And so all of those people, the show creators and all the producers and everybody around it, they will do absolutely everything they can, including selling their firstborn, in order to get this thing to be picked up.
So then the lead character, who was once a subatomic particle physicist, and the thing took place in, Azerbaijan, now all of a sudden it takes place in Detroit, and we're going to have Kevin Costner be the lead, or what, you know what I mean? Like those sorts of things. Like, sure, whatever. Let's get this damn thing on the air.
Yeah. Whatever it takes. And you know the way, I know we're jumping around here, but we have a lot to say about this. If you're an actor and you want a shot at this thing, what they're thinking is they're competing with all of the streaming platforms from the same networks. They're competing with all of the alternative platforms, Amazon and Disney Plus and Hulu and yada yada and Netflix. And so they need to get their casting to a level where they believe that test audiences and America is going to want to tune into their show more than they're going to want to tune into a Netflix show, and more than any other pilot that's being made. So they are going to start going after the craziest people, because Meryl Streep is doing television now, right? So, why won't she do our pilot? Viola Davis's show is ending, so she should come do our pilot. And they'll start heading toward really unrealistic places in order to. So you don't really count in their minds quite yet if you don't have that kind of stature. But the great news is, when all those people pass and you are waiting in the wings as the brilliant understudy ready to walk on and take your place in that room or in that self-tape, that's when they are desperate. They are a week away from shooting. They need you, and they've now, in their minds, let go of all the impossibility. And now they're like, okay, let's just get the best fucking actor we can, and then they renegotiate with God, And they go, okay, we're not going to get those people, so let's get the best and most amazing actor that's going to walk in this room, because then we're going to be like Stranger Things, and we're going to do that kind of casting, and blah, blah, blah. But everything this is important to really remember. Everything they do comes from a place of desperate need to get their pilot picked up and on the air.
And so as that relates to, when you show up to the audition and your nerves about it, you have to know.
And by the way, it's loaded for you because you think this pilot could change your life.
Right.
It does not matter nearly as much as it does for them.
Which is what I was going to say.
Okay.
No. I mean, that's exactly right. That their needs and their careers are at stake, most likely more than yours. So you have to, in all of your work, your self-tape in person, and it'll be self-tape this year, you have to position yourself with the understanding that you are here to help them because they need it.
Let's talk a little bit more about what that looks like, what that really means. Walking into a room with a very strong personal point of view about what this material can be, knowing that it's not fully evolved, that they have an idea of who these characters are, but they're not human yet. And you're the only one who can come in and humanize them. And that if you walk into the room understanding the fear and anxiety and pressure and desperation that they're all feeling, how can you share your vision, your point of view, your humanity, your talent with them in a way that elevates their work, but also makes them realize, oh, that's what that character is. That's what I wrote. That's what's possible. That's what's going to get me my show seen.
And this is why it's important to understand what a pilot is, what the industry is actually doing, what its purpose is around this time of year, what its limitations are. And the limitations are increasing as we move along. Again, we talked about pilot season sort of dissolving to a certain extent, or as we knew it. Because if it exists in your head as this fog of anxiety and, hopes and goals not achieved and all that kind of stuff, if it remains that mental concept, you won't be able to address it in a way that actually gives you success. You have to understand what it is, what people are going through right now, the showrunners or whatever, these people who you're trying to have be open to you, invite you to play with them, so that you can do that. So you have to see the true nature of reality. And part of that, I think, is about understanding the numbers, not in a dream-killing kind of way, but that if such a small number of pilots actually get picked up, such a small number of pilots are made in such a short period of time, your chances are not good. But you put yourself in a good spot, as you mentioned, to book pilots if you understand the nature of it. And you take the opportunities as they're given to you with eyes open, not with, oh my God, this is going to make me a big, bright, shining star, right? We talk about George Clooney booking 1,000 pilots. None of them went until one did. And it never is that threshold past which, oh my God, now I'm a star. That's not real life. And we know that because we have actors come to our classes here all the time who had a big success last pilot season, but in the interim, nothing happened or things that didn't want to happen.
The pilot didn't get picked up,
right.
or it got picked up and it was canceled after 3 episodes.
And there's that beautiful moment in September and October, or whenever now, but usually when these pilots that people would have given their left arm to be in, they show up on television and you watch it and you go, that's not that great.
Or even stronger, like, what the fuck is that? What were they thinking?
Right.
Well,
we know what they were thinking. They were doing the best they can just to stay above water and try to make some sort of piece of art within, a tiny period of time.
And they have to compromise themselves over and over and over again. And and the pilot season just focuses on the 4 big networks: ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and the CW. And even those networks are all heavily focusing on their streaming platforms that are year-round, so that they don't have to work in this ridiculous time of year where everybody's competing with each other for like the same 10 actors. For some reason, every year there are like 10 actors on the hit list, and everybody goes after those people. One year it was Christian Slater, another year it was Matthew Fox. Right. I'm thinking of Guys Only, because these pilots are very much about the 35-year-old male actor who's going through some crisis, and could he be a female? What ethnicity can he be?
Someone said about American theater that American theater has shown us all the ways in which white men get sad. Which, and to a certain extent, and while this, again, that may be another change that's happening, although, we'll wait to see the numbers. But
your pilots, from what I'm hearing, networks are looking to pick up female-driven stories that are non-white stories.
But if you look at the demographic, like, that they're going for, right? Like, who are they trying to sell? Who are the networks trying to sell? Who are the network viewers? Well, there's a certain kind of folk who are watching Netflix and some of the streamings versus some of the cold hard network. Like, who's going to tune in every Thursday at 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. to watch the procedural drama? So
it's usually an older audience,
right? So if you're making a pilot, you're thinking about them,
that audience, But it's not exclusively a white audience anymore. So and sometimes it's segmented. So if we make this show, this half-hour comedy with this black actor, comedian star, then it will appeal to that audience.
Right.
Our commercials will be catering to that audience, and we will segment our audiences out because we have to, because everybody's watching Netflix.
It's so interesting, the dollars and cents of it, right?
And it is that.
But that's part of it, and actors need to know that, right? Like, so you're going to McDonald's to say, like, hey, this is the thing we're thinking of. Would you advertise on a show like this?
Yeah. And they already know that in a way, because they know who their advertisers are.
Right.
They know what they need to cater to, and they're already building the commercials and the advertising in their heads as they create the show. Or they'll go to something that's tried and true for their network. What worked last year, let's keep making this kind of show because it works for us, or because it did well last year, or on that other network. Or let's do something that competes with the other platforms, the other outlets,
right.
And do our version of that. And so that's why
CSI Boise.
There you go. It's starting to dissolve.
NCIS.
Or you
Sherman
look at
Oaks.
you look at the NBC shows, Chicago PD and all those things.
But again, it speaks to the economics that, to a certain extent, there is an attempt for sameness. And that thing worked, that laundry detergent worked, so let's do the same laundry detergent but put it in an orange bottle and see if that'll fit. And so actors, though, are not on the level of advertisers or bean counters. So they're dealing with creatives for the most part. Including some executives who may or may not be that.
Right.
But in their work, what's so interesting is that the showrunners, the creative people, are trying to balance that, right? They go back and forth between this is going to appeal to a wide demographic of people, but at the same time we want it to be gritty and amazing and something artistically relevant. And so you as the actor are still charged with walking into those rooms or creating those self-tapes with some sort of amazing artistic expression that is unique, that offers humanity.
Yeah.
And that pushes back against the sameness of perhaps the situation or it's the same
and
procedure.
That's ultimately what everybody wants. They want somebody to come in and elevate that same cop or that same detective or that same doctor to a place of a fully realized character, and the breakdown will be written with all kinds of contradictions to create a full human in their minds, and that's what they really, really want. But they'll start off with, how do we compromise to get our lead, to get that name that will help the networks feel comfortable and pick up our show, and how will our test audience in, Nevada look at this and then go, oh, well, I know that guy. He used to be a movie star, or I know that woman. She was on my favorite show last year that got, that is finished its 8-year run, and so who are those people? So when Grey's Anatomy is over, then all of those people will have their own shows because people will watch them, and that's what people will want. So that's the dance that they do between what do we do to populate our casts with human beings that are our dream actors that will help us tell our story, versus what is it that's going to satisfy the bean counters, the advertisers, the test audience, and ultimately the American audience, whoever they may be, or the international audience, whoever they may be. Because that's another new consideration. So all this stuff, blah, 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 basically says to all of you listening, this has nothing to do with you and your talent. So how do you accept all this, incubate it all, and then come out the other side if you are getting a pilot audition? And if you're not, we'll talk about what that looks like. If you're getting a pilot audition, how do you come in with the full force of your talent, collaborate with these people, offer them something generously because they are exhausted and terrified, so that they feel like they're being heard and seen and their work is being realized, and then walk out whole saying, I helped them evolve and elevate their pilot script, and I can go home now and feel like I've been creative, collaborative, and done some good work today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan, as you know, of shutting off one's head when one can, which is hard for actors. And so here we are filling their heads with all of these notions. The point, though, is, and this is what I think actors should understand. A, you can't control any of this stuff, and nor should you try. But I just want to say, it's information. Once you have it, then it's not magical. Exactly. But it creates the space in your head of, once you have that understanding, oh, I can't control any of this. I'm not going to decide the trends or whatever. But what can you control? And so with the understanding that the showrunners and the decision makers and casting directors, are not sleeping, and they're probably eating not as well as they can. And this is just a nutty time for them, right? And they're in this fog. Because of all those things, and because of the demands within a very short period of time, you are best served by offering work that is cleaner, pointier, bolder, more specific. Like during pilot season, the answer is not to think more, to figure out what to do so you'll book. To me, the answer is lean harder into your artistry, deeper into your instincts, and express more generously, almost in your face generously, this is what this should be, showrunner. Yeah. I'm telling you, because I'm a human being and this is my job to elevate this thing to the level of artistry, this is what this is. Trust me. Yeah. If you start hedging your bets and trying to be all things to all people, the system is going to be like that anyways. Just apropos this discussion of the frenzy of they don't have the ability to see things clearly. You have to offer clarity in your work so that they see clarity and they will be drawn to the clarity. It will be a salve for them. It'll calm them and go, oh my God, yes, she took care of us. Yes, that's what that is. So be the calm in the storm.
All the time. Yeah.
And you have experience of that, Risa, like people walking into this pressure cooker of an audition room where everyone hates each other because they're 3 months in and can't cast the thing and nobody knows what's going on, and someone calms the room.
Yeah, just by showing up fully,
right?
And just offering something really personal of themselves in the storytelling. I remember one time I was in a room with a very big executive, no, not an executive really, she's a producer. And she hated to be in rooms with actors.
Why?
Because it scared her, because she felt like she had to take care of them.
Yeah.
And it made her really nervous, and she didn't know what to do about it.
So weird, right?
And so she would sit, like they created this construct where she and her team sat at the far end of this massive conference table. And I walked in there going, what is happening here?
Right, because lepers are walking in and she needs to be away.
Yeah. So slowly I got her closer and took the conference, said, let's do it in this room over in this place and at the production office. And then that started to happen. And she said, oh, I'm so uncomfortable. Can I sit in the back? There's no back. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And I said, let's just try a session where you're in there and we'll see what happens. And the director was fairly communicative for the pilot, and just so you guys all know, directors are brought in to help create this thing, and for them it's huge because if the show gets picked up, they get a piece of it for the rest of its life.
Hallelujah.
So every director right now is looking for a pilot.
Right. Gotta pay
Oscar
bills.
winners to be and have been, because in their mind they're thinking, I do this pilot and I'm set for life. And I've seen that happen for people. In any case, what happened was during this session, we were doing this one part, and actor after actor came in and was these guys who were in their 50s and 60s were performing, and they were nervous. They couldn't remember their lines, and they were just all over the place, huge mess. And we were seeing a lot of celebrity guys because their managers had begged us to see them because they needed to come back. And she said to me, okay, you've done your experiment. It failed, I'm leaving. And I said, there's just one more guy. I really want you to see this guy. And I really meant that. Guy came in and he just looked at all of us. He said, I haven't auditioned in a million years. I am here because I love this show. And I don't really know what you want me to do, but can we just, pretend we're in a rehearsal and play a little bit? And we did, and he was amazing. And she actually offered a note that he took, and she got excited. And he got the part. I mean, it took a while to get the network to sign off on him because they thought he was a bit of a has-been. He is not, he never was, and he had to come back and do a test for them. But that experience changed it for her because he changed it for her. Because he came in and said, this is all a bunch of nonsense. And he said, I saw all these amazing guys in the waiting room who I've, revered for a lifetime, who are a little older than him. He goes, each of us is individual. We each bring our own thing to this. I don't know what really you want me to do here because I've never auditioned for a pilot. And he just said, let me just show you or work with you and figure out what this is. And because he gave us permission, not me specifically, but the team, the creative team, permission to let go of their own anxiety and to come back to the work and to offer that to them. Oh yeah, we've created something here. We actually want to make something that we love, that we want an audience to love. Then he brought humanity to it, and he also brought this amazing sense of collaboration. And because he did that, there were gasps and who would have thought and how amazing and let's do that. And they fought like hell for him. And he got the part, and he was great.
Yeah, I mean, and it speaks to, on so many levels, pilot season is such a great example of this Buddhist notion of craving. Everyone wants these things so badly, and they're so scared because what if they don't get them? And it's just that heightened, tense, deep, obsessive need all the time. And so you can offer a light to all of those folks if in your work you have that calm, generous expression of artistry and bringing them back to it. Yeah. To me, that's how you find success during
and
pilot
that's
season.
what does it every time.
Right.
And the testing process has changed now because the networks used to have you do this song and dance in person, where you'd go to the basement of CBS into this really dark room and you'd perform for 40 executives, all needing to be there because they needed to feel purpose in all of this.
With not the intention of being moved by you, they're looking at you dollar signs. I mean, it's a cold room.
And politics, like there's so many politics in all of this. Again, nothing that you can say or do. But the good news is that, I guess, in any of this is that if you can come back to the humanity of it and to understanding where people are coming from, and even the testing process now is done on tape, so they'll watch it on tape, so you don't have to put actors through that horrid process where they have to sing and dance in front of the network brass. Yeah. And then that one moment becomes the defining moment. And again, we love the notion of what you can do during pilot season with self-tapes. We have a whole other podcast on self-tapes that we will attach the link to in our show notes so that you can have a listen and come back to how you can make a great self-tape that will penetrate all of this craziness.
But of course, this is all relevant to actors who are well represented and well heeled and will participate actively in pilot season. They'll be invited to the party. And of course, the majority of actors won't. The majority of actors will feel like they're on the outside. But we just described pilot season as both an actual industrial structure with all its limitations, mostly limitations, but also a mental construct. So if it's just a mental construct, can the actors who won't officially participate, quote unquote, rework that mental construct in their head to invite themselves to the party, if you know what I'm saying? And of course they can. We talk about that all the time, right?
Yeah.
So then let's deal first with the person who feels like they're on the outside looking in at everyone having such a great time and roommates booking pilots and going out so much, and those feelings that come up.
And it can be somebody who's new to the industry. It can be somebody who's been around a little while and just hasn't gone out for pilots or isn't getting a lot of pilot stuff because their agents are focused on other things, or their agents, can't even get them in the room, or they don't have an agent. And it can be for people who have had big pilot seasons and for whatever reasons, that's not happening now. So there are a lot of you who are having that experience. There are a lot of us who are having that experience.
We often say that it's tantamount to like some prescribed holiday, like New Year's Eve. You better be doing something really fun, and there's this moment when the ball drops, and you better be doing X, Y, or Z. Well, one can think the same thing about pilot season. That I should be at the dance. I should be engaged and up for pilots. And people, that I talk to at the gym, like, oh, it's so busy. And my response is, well, it's not. So what do? Well, the answer is you create it anew in your head and make it yours. So our answer to someone who feels like they're on the outside is make those 60 to 120 days a period of unprecedented artistic output. Like start now to say, I'm going to sit down with a calendar and map out the next 2 to 3 months or whatever and create a schedule of artistic output, including, shooting your own self-tapes, writing monologues, writing scenes, getting together with other actors, reading through scripts, getting in class, etc., to create this structure that is your, robust expression of artistry within that same period of time. So a couple things happen when you do that. Well, the wheel starts turning. You start radiating the work, right? So in this period of time when people are looking for that next thing, all of a sudden you're in and around other actors in artistic communities where you're giving off your work. And there's something about that makes the industry come back around. It also pulls your head out of your own ass, so you don't wallow, sitting on the couch playing video games and eating ice cream.
And feeling like a failure.
Right. Like managing the ego and the mind and all that is so important. And the other thing is, if and when the industry does come calling, you're deep in the work. You're practicing. You're flexible. You're balanced. You have the ability to just jump right in, which is, by the way, what they need this period more than most. Right. You're going to Louisiana. You're leaving tomorrow. You'll be there for 2 weeks and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Yes, great, fine.
And it's the actor who is deep in that practice or who just came off, a play or is in a play or just came off of a show whose muscles are oiled and they're ready to go. And you have to be ready to go. You have to be working at that level, and you have to feel like also this pilot audition, if you get one in 3 months, is not that important, because here's the other thing, and this goes to the non-pilot season, pilot season. You need to be that way all year round, because pilots are being made all year round, and you need to, when you get an audition, it may be important, it may not be important, but you need to walk into that fully immersed in your artistic practice.
So the quote-unquote pilot season specific classes that we offer here, the pilot season workout, on-camera classes, both 8-week and in our ongoing classes, will address on-camera work, audition work, but specifically beyond both of those things, how to stay in the practice consistently so it's not just the focus on the slam dunk, just the focus on the home run, just the focus on the knockout punch, but all of the push-ups and the exercises and managing your ego and head and the kind of artistic work even that allows for that moment to happen. You can't have the singular focus on that moment. That 6-page pilot audition for that procedural drama, because it doesn't work that way.
Or on those 6 weeks where you feel like you're not invited to the party, you've got to throw your own party.
Absolutely. And across the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then people will come to your party and you'll be a happy whole actor. And that's what the goal is here anyway. So there are so many things you can do. And if your instinct is, or even if your agent says to you or friends say, you're going to go to San Francisco to do a play, or you're going to do a play in LA, or you're going to, leave town to go write something in a cabin in Big Bear, or you're going to go do that, writing workshop or whatever during pilot season. Are you crazy? You go, no, I'm not crazy. I'm totally sane. And this is going to serve me. And if somebody wants me to do something, I'll either self-tape from where I am, which is what they want in any case, or, I'll drive or fly back if it's that important. And I'll be ready, and I'll miss a show if I have to, but I will be in and of the work. And so what we prescribe is that you create this artistic calendar for yourself, and you have a goal, and you set an objective, and you spend the next 2 months prepping, creating, and hitting that objective. And we will offer you that in our free pilot season playbook, which has so much intel and information that goes beyond what we're talking about now, and also takes you on that journey so that you can be accountable to yourself as an artistic leader.
So what you're doing,
creator.
what you're doing is you're hijacking pilot season.
I love that.
You're saying, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing your thing.
Yeah.
And alongside of you, parallel to you, while you're beating your head against the wall, I'm going to be right beside you doing an unprecedented amount of consistent work that I'm going to output, be it writing or acting or whatever else. And if you turn and take a look at me, I'll be there right there with you. And if not, that's fine too, because I'm really engaged in what I'm doing here. It's a great way to live.
Yeah, and then that carries on, because now that becomes your practice throughout the year. So we ask you to declare that for yourself. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast.
Yeah.
So we want to welcome to this episode of the Pilot Season podcast, Becky Silverman.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And you're teaching. You just started the Pilot Season workout.
I did, first class last night.
How'd that go?
It went great. Everyone seemed really excited. And I think there's something really special about spending 8 weeks with the same group and the same actors, and really getting a sense of who they are and what their abilities are, and watching them grow and come out of their shells. So I'm excited.
And that's different from being in the room in an audition where you, even if you know an actor, you get only those few minutes.
Certainly. It's a totally different dynamic. It's a totally different energy. And I probably said 10 times last night, class is a space to mess up and make the mistakes and not worry about it being word perfect and everything having to be the way it's supposed to be. What are we doing there then if that's what it is? So I don't want it to be perfect. I want room to work and to grow and see how it all evolves.
Cool.
So we're talking about pilot season here. First thing that comes to mind for you when you think of the notion of pilot season, is it trauma? Is it joy? What is it?
Somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think it's a different beast today than it was when I started, and
even
certainly when
ago.
other people started. Well, the cycles are different. So even though there still exists that rush and that madness, it doesn't feel quite as crazy as it used to be, because you know that the streaming services or some of the cable channels are doing their pilots at a totally different time. So the scrambling for the 3 leading men that everybody wants and who's going to woo them the best to get them on their network, it doesn't exist in that same way, I don't think.
But there still is those 2 guys who wrote that, supernatural, pilot about, teenagers who become, gods and also do musical dancing and singing. Their hearts and souls are in that. And that's not a real pilot, but if anybody out there wants to write it, go ahead.
But it feels
Right.
like
It's like it could
it
be,
100% could be.
Right.
But for them,
Just gave someone a brilliant idea.
for those 2 guys or two women or guy and woman, whoever they are, I mean, people are coming at casting directors with this is everything to me. If you find me, so I wrote this for Adrian Brody and Robert Downey Jr., and I know I can't get them, but who is there who is either known or unknown, and please pull that name out of your hat, like right here in this interview, because for those of you who don't know this, casting directors, including me and Becky, have to interview for jobs just like you do. And there's a lot of like, will you save me? Will you elevate me to the promised land? Will you get me Adrian Brody and Rob Downey Jr. or a version of them? So there's still that coming at you with such need, I find.
And then that's right. Then that's where we come in and we say, well, what about this person or this person? No, I don't think that person's right at all. And then you get that comment of, I never really thought about this person as this. And then that's when I think our jobs come in to say, I saw him or her in this, or I saw a glimmer of this in this part, and I just think that this would really allow her to shine. And hopefully you're working with someone who respects your opinion and has hired you for your opinion, and they listen to you. Whether they say yes or not is a different story, but
right. So
you're at least discussing
right.
and having a conversation rather than it just being, this is who I want.
And so then what happens
bust.
when you're down the line with the creative team investing in this person who you got them excited about, and then you're going simultaneously or thereafter to the studio network, and the network goes, what? No, I don't know. No, that's not right. We would like you to think about these people. Then you have to come back and convince your creative team about somebody that you don't even believe in. What is that like?
That is part of our jobs as casting directors, to
negotiate
make sure everyone's happy, make sure everyone's being heard. Again, hopefully your producer is someone who understands that is a possibility, knows that I'm just going to go with she for all of this.
Yeah.
Right. She needs to choose her battles wisely, and that might not be the one to pick, even though it's an important one. I mean, your cast is your cast, and when you're casting a pilot, that's who you're going to have for more often than not the duration of the series. So it's a big deal. And now with all the technology and the tapes and the international and have you looked here and have you talked to this person? I think a lot more is expected of us in terms of the process, but it still boils down to who really inhabits all of those qualities in the best way possible.
And when that doesn't happen, and you're a week away from shooting, and that person has not been found because everybody's written that same part and everybody's fought for that same person, and you've just lost, all your possibilities for whatever reasons, to other shows or to bigger, better jobs elsewhere. What do you do then?
I like to think that everyone at that point shifts their expectation. Give me a beat, let me go recheck my notes.
Scrape the bottom of the barrel.
I'll see what else. let me just see what else. And then, frankly, I have no idea what the answer will be once I get
a lot of
moment.
Yes, a lot of yes-anding here, which I love. But at what point do you say no, and how do you say it?
Well, I suppose when you're able to show that you've done the work.
Yeah, the lists are 19 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think these days it gets harder and harder because it feels like there are so many more people. It's not just
people weighing in. Got it. Yeah.
Multiple studios,
so who are those
multiple
people?
Executive producers,
okay,
multiple. So maybe it's the creator and then also a showrunner because it's a first-time executive, first-time writer, and then the director comes on board, a few weeks into the process, and you have your primary studio, and then you also have your secondary studio, and then you have, the pod production company that brings it to the studio, and then you have your network or your service or your platform, and
you're answering to all of them,
and each one has a group of people, so you're talking like 20 people weighing in.
So it's I think less about having to report to each one than everyone's got an opinion.
And everyone's on
that's
the
a
same email
lot.
chain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is the biggest challenge, because the casting director and the creator of the show can be on the same page about every single thing.
Yeah.
And I think you hope that that's the case, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything when all is said and done.
Yeah.
And it's a push and pull and a give and take, I think.
So where's the joy in it for you then?
Yeah.
We're dealing with all the apocalyptic scenarios.
Well, yes.
Yeah, and I'm throwing
know,
things at you because these things happen, and people compromise and adjust, every single day until they get to the point of, making that deal with the devil or with God, and that this is going to have to be okay, because this is where we're headed.
And it's gonna have to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I've never been in a situation where the showrunner is not happy with any piece of that casting puzzle. That would be really difficult.
Yeah.
And I would hope that the powers that be would recognize that and work to make everyone as happy as possible.
Okay. I haven't. I've had the opposite experience many times. So
That's tough.
yeah, it is tough.
Well,
You try to offer some salvation, and you acknowledge that it's a compromise, and you ask them maybe write to that person more, because now it's something different.
Now it's something different, absolutely.
And support those people, that lead actor or actress with strong actors that you can then, the conversations that I've had go as far as maybe you kill that. I've said this to somebody recently. Maybe you kill the lead actor off after season 1, and you support the cast with such strong people that they can take over the show should it have that life, because you've got to make this work with that person, because we do not have a choice.
and then hopefully you're surprised.
Yeah.
And because a lot of times there's this idea in your head and then you don't get it, and that's extremely disappointing. But then someone else always gets that part, like someone's always going to be on set.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes something different, and it doesn't always become something good. I completely recognize that, but
it could be something wonderful.
It could be something wonderful, something that you didn't see right at the very beginning. But I like what you just said about this is who you're getting, so maybe embrace it and write to it and have an open mind about it.
And I think for people listening, I think for you to understand this conversation we're having speaks to the fact that those people are not all powerful. They don't always get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, show creators, executive producers, people who have run networks that are now executive producers and have 5 shows on the air, do not always get what they want, and they are at your mercy in some ways,
Yep.
So to follow up on your question, Steve, so what is the fun and the joy in doing a pilot, which is so challenging and so intense?
Well, first, do you prefer doing a pilot rather than doing something else, a film, episodes?
Series? Yeah.
I mean, I do love the energy of pilot season. I do. It's crazy, but I think it can, there's something so rewarding about it at the end of, not the day, at the end of,
But even that,
10 weeks.
there is an end to it, right? So you can push and push and not sleep, and at the end of 10 weeks, you can collapse and recover because it'll end.
Because someone's going to be on set. Someone's feet will be on that stage. I do love the process of casting a pilot, and I think the fun and magic happens when you veer off just a little bit from that straight and narrow, and it's extremely rewarding when your producers respond to that, where like I said earlier, like I didn't necessarily see it that way, but I really, really like it, and that's the best part. But that happens in episodic as well. I think it's just a bigger picture when it's a pilot,
Because you're creating from scratch.
You're creating from scratch.
Right.
You are, as the casting director and the actor, what are they bringing to this unknown? It's up to them to, they're not creating the world, I suppose, but they're only given, and not always, 60 pages or 30 pages. And they kind of have to create a lot of that life and that backstory for themselves.
And speaking to that, what is it about pilot season that is different for actors in terms of what you see in self-tapes and in the room? Like, how do they have to switch things up, or do they? in that process specifically?
I think it's the same on different levels. I think the work and the prep has to be is the same whether it's frankly a 2-line part or a series regular. It's just you're going to give it different amounts of time and energy. But who is this person? Where have they been? Where are they going? And I think it's important to bring, with pilots, when creating a series regular, you have to bring something of yourself to it as well. Not something crazy or different or that isn't even on the page, but just something. You have to bring that character off the page and to life. And that's
for the first time ever.
For the first time ever. Yeah. Yes. Who is this person? And while that is extremely overwhelming and daunting, I think there's something so exciting about that as well. That, you're given these parameters, and sure, I think you should listen to them, but also give yourself the freedom to create this brand new thing.
And that's if you bring yourself fully to that, because at the end of the day, people are really casting human beings, not characters. When you're creating a group of people who are going to be together in this emergency room or in this police station or in this
group of friends, building,
this band of brothers and sisters, whoever they are. It's really who are you as a human being, and how do you move people in that room, and how do you bring your own personal point of view to the story? That's the thing that wins the day, I think.
I want to chat just a little bit about where you find actors, and we talked about the series regulars and what that looks like, and the lists and whatever. But in as much as it feels like people are looking for volume these days, and you have access to volume through self-tapes from all over the world, is there a world, this pilot season, for instance, in which an actor is unrepresented, super talented, maybe she's putting up her one-woman show and people know her, right, but she's not in the rooms all the time, at which it gets to a point in March where they're still looking, and someone will sort of peek around in places they wouldn't normally, and you bring her in?
Where do you find?
Question?
Yeah. Where do you dig?
I mean, that as an example, right, I think is fantastic. Everywhere, right? You have your relationships with the theater programs around town.
Right.
You have you go to whatever theater you go to whatever improv shows you go to. And so maybe that untested actor isn't in your first round, or maybe she is. But if she's not, and you're still looking, and that this could be really interesting, you bring her in. And maybe you don't pretend that she's something that she's not. You make everyone aware, I saw her in her one-woman show, and she has such presence and sass and whatever it is that they're looking for in this character. She gave a great read for me the other day. I just wanted you guys to see her.
Right.
See what happens from that. Stranger things have happened,
sure,
I think.
But to be clear, you go to the improv shows and you go to those places to find actors.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Yeah, I mean, important to know, right? So people who are on the outside thinking, the only way in is to get not only an agent, but the right agent.
And a fancy agent who's going to get you in, and, because they're looking for fancy, they're looking for big. We talked earlier in the podcast about show creators and producers, executive producers, and studios needing actors to compete with the cast of Big Little Lies and The Morning Show and, the fancy shit. And so they want the fancy stuff. And so how do those people who are not that fancy, get in on this thing and get a shot at this? And, when and how does that happen?
You keep doing your thing. You keep taking your classes and making sure that regardless of the auditions that are coming in, you're doing what you love to do each and every week, surrounded by people who support you, so that your mind is staying focused on where you need to be and what you need to be doing. Yes, of course, we speak to the, quote, big agencies or the fancy agencies or whatever it is, and you make a list of names, of recognizable names. Sure, that's almost always going to be at least part of the process.
And the beginning part.
Right. Exactly. But I also feel like with how much content there is, not everybody's going to, compete with Big Little Lies. Sometimes
Right.
people just, need to find fantastic actors and make a television show, and enough people are going to watch it. I'm not sure who could possibly compete with, Meryl Streep on your television.
I know people who could. I mean,
Some are
Meryl
class
Streep, Meryl
even.
Streep knows people who could, so yeah. But I think that's so important, though, because our audience, you guys listening, may feel like I don't, know how to have a shot at this thing. And it just, every casting director, every person we've spoken to on the podcast and who we know, I love that you're saying that, comes back to that. And you guys need to hear this, that people do look outside the obvious channels, and the message is keep doing your thing, keep immersing yourself in the work, keep doing what you love, keep those muscles flexed, because it makes you a happy whole actor and because it keeps you ready.
Yeah,
And I suspect that's part of the charm for you is like, I found this amazing person. Oh my God, why hasn't anyone given her a shot yet? She's so brilliant. Or maybe she just, something in her life and whatever, she's just stepping out into the light in a certain way that just makes it undeniable. And you found her, you brought her in. That's great.
I mean, I hate to say this, we get such little recognition for what we do.
It's
so
true.
yes, when there are those moments of, oh my goodness, look who I found.
Right.
You kind of want to take it because they're few and far between, and you don't know when it's going to happen
That's the joy
again.
of it. Anybody can make that list, and anybody could, just dance around with Rob Downey Jr., Adrian Brody are going to go at the top of the list. Sure, great, good for us. But the real work, the real joy, the real effectiveness comes when you can find that amazing actor, or not find, just bring in all
Yes.
those amazing actors
Yes.
and
I mean, whether
celebrate them.
it's someone's first job or someone's first series regular,
Yeah.
to be able to have that conversation with that actor who is being given that,
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful, special thing.
You like doing that in person over the phone? You like hearing the voice?
I mean,
You tell the agent?
because sometimes you don't always get
Yeah, sure.
to do it, but sometimes you do get to see that person afterwards once
Right.
they know that they got the part. And it's just a really wonderful thing, and not in an egotistical way, just in this person's life could change completely now. And I was there to witness it.
And what's interesting is that speaks to the why for so many of the casting directors that we know, collaborating with artists, giving opportunity to artists, which you talk about wanting to be a casting director from 9 years old or whatever. It's like it's
less
that sort of
than
stuff,
that, but
right?
yeah.
But
Yes.
and then what that leads to, or what speaks to, is that for actors who are doing the work consistently at a particular level, but whether it's within the confines of the ivory towers or not, if you put yourself out there, it becomes a small town. So all of a sudden, you have access because you're speaking the same language of art and being affected as that woman who does not have an agent but is kicking ass in this show that she wrote.
Yes,
Which is super cool.
absolutely.
So in all of this, what do you think the biggest lesson is for actors who are feeling on the outside and aren't getting pilot auditions? Steve and I talked about this a little bit, and we have, some feelings about it, but, people who aren't getting pilot auditions, never got one, used to get one, in this, now it's almost like 6 weeks. It's gotten so condensed because scripts sometimes aren't picked up till the beginning of February. Now they're starting to shoot mid-March. So they have more time to edit, to get it to the network so that it can go into the next stage of the process, which are the upfronts in mid-May, where stuff is being looked at and chosen and then presented to advertisers. So what do you say to those actors who feel like they're just not at the party?
That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Pilot season, it's just a name. It's just a title. It's just a very short period of time. Are you in class? Are you doing what you love to do? Are you keeping yourself immersed in that world? And even if you're not getting to do it at a pilot audition, are you getting to do it elsewhere? I think that's the number one thing that's going to keep an actor going and positive and happy and fulfilled. And then getting a little more specific than that, I think make some self-tapes. Can't guarantee, you're not going to be guaranteed that they're going to get looked at. Yeah. But do it. Do it
I
and
love that.
send it somewhere.
Yeah, I love that.
Because then you've done something. You've done it. You've been proactive. And you know what? It might get watched and it might be great, and then you never know.
And you can get access to auditions in all kinds of ways if you're scrappy enough. Through friends, getting online to where they're posted. Because during the interesting thing, pilots are actually put out there, the whole script, which doesn't happen in episodic or in films because nobody wants to let those secrets out in the storytelling. But a pilot script will be out there for the taking, and so they're not that hard to find. And you can get into a self-tape practice where you actually do this, like do a self-tape every day for 6 weeks or 5 days a week for 6 weeks, be in this self-tape practice so that even past this pilot season construct time, you're now a self-tape, aficionado.
Aficionado, absolutely.
And you've done all the do's and don'ts of it, and you've practiced it, and you've made it your own, and you've made little films as self-tapes, and you've just really dug into that process.
Yep, you've been doing your thing. Hopefully you've been watching them back to see what works, what doesn't, what looks good, what's too bright, what's too loud, what's too this, so that you are a pro, so that you don't even, you know exactly where to go and where to stand in your apartment, and there's not really a question, and you can just go do it.
And they become easier. They just become much easier and more fluid.
No scrambling.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts about this whole pilot season?
Yes, it's not as overwhelming as it sounds, and it doesn't need to be. Like, I think you and I talk about every time we see each other, all that matters is the work. That's all that matters. So if you're doing that, you're going to be fine.
Cool. Thanks, Becky. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
We couldn't get to everything in the time allotted on this episode. There's so much more to talk about. But the takeaway from everything that we've just told you about the true nature of what pilot season is, and this may be hard for you to hear, is that you can't strategize your way into booking a pilot. There aren't any answers that you can find that lead to booking a pilot because nobody knows. Nobody knows exactly what this is. Nobody knows really what they want. Everybody's just guessing. But here's what we do know for sure. What you can do during this time of year is the consistent, bold work of being an actor, of making work, creating a pilot season and a structure for your life as an artistic being that is yours and yours alone. And that's exhibiting artistic leadership in everything you do. So while everybody in town is floundering and desperately grasping at straws and hoping that they guessed right and frankly just trying to survive, the only thing that makes a casting director, showrunner, agent, show creator, or executive take notice of you is finding you deep in the work. So what we're offering you is the pilot season playbook, as we mentioned, which is an online series of audios from me and Steve, along with some workbook assignments and exercises that you can do in a way for you to take control of this thing. And with the pilot season playbook, we are challenging you, and this is different than what you might expect us to say. We're challenging you to set yourself a creative goal that you will focus on during the next few months to explore and execute. We challenge you to release your hyper-focus on pilot season or whatever you think it is, on the construct of it all, and on any need for validation, and release the fear of not being invited to the party. And put all of that energy almost solely on a creative task that you are personally and deeply connected to. And that's so exciting. So if it's a script you'll write, a scene you'll shoot, a play you'll produce, a commitment to dive fully into a new creative practice, whatever that is for you. We're asking you to take command of this time to transcend it by defining it with your own creative measurement. That shift to being a creative leader is a massive one. It changes your place in the world, in the industry, and done boldly, it creates a galvanizing pull that draws the industry in towards you. We see it happen every pilot season, every year. So go ahead and grab the playbook. It's completely free. Make that commitment to yourself, and thanks for listening. We love sharing this content with our community. We offer it 100% free, and it's our privilege to do so. If you're loving this podcast and are interested in offering something in return, go ahead and subscribe to the Acting Podcast. Then find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to your podcast and leave us an honest rating and review. Your words will help us bring this work to even more actors and artists around the world.
Thank you so much for listening and for being here with us. We love how this community shows up for us and for each other, online and in the studio. And as a thank you to our incredible community, we want to give you an amazing free gift. It's called the Comprehensive Guide to the Perfect Self-Tape.
So all you have to do is screenshot your review, send it to theactingpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll send you an exclusive gift of the Perfect Self-Tape Guide to take your work to the next level.
And come visit us online at thebgbstudio.com. And if you're in LA, Atlanta, or New York, jump into a class with us. We're here to get you into the kind of shape necessary to be successful.